Hey guys, welcome to the Azure Fundamentals session. So in this particular session, we're going to learn the basics of Azure. We're going to learn what is Azure. We're going to learn why do you need to use Azure and the basic integral services. I'm Kodeshwar and I'll be taking you through this entire session where we'll understand Azure comprehensively. And also it's a basic session so that you get your basics right. Later, we will also have bigger tutorials on Azure. Okay, so now before moving on with this particular session, make sure that you've subscribed to our channel so that you don't miss our upcoming videos. And also, if you enjoy our content, please leave a like. And if you have any queries, please leave a comment down below and we would be addressing all of your questions. So now without any further delays, let's begin with the session. So guys, let's start by understanding what is cloud computing before we move on to understand what is Azure. And also if you want to learn more about cloud computing, you can check out the beginner cloud computing video, which is already available in our Scalar channel. It would give you more insights about cloud computing. And then you can come up to this video and learn about Azure. Okay, but I'll still give you a brief about what is cloud computing. So cloud computing is the on-demand delivery of IT resources over the internet with pay-as-you-go pricing. So this particular sentence summarizes it. So cloud computing is a service which provides you IT resources over the internet. That basically means you can access a server, you can access a database server, you can access storage, you can access different kinds of infrastructural components. So directly from the internet, you don't have to do anything else. You just need a system which is connected to the internet, and that's more than enough. You can connect to whatever cloud provider you need, and then you can also use the pay-as-you-go pricing model, which basically is much easier than the other types of pricing models. Pay-as-you-go makes sure that you only pay for what you use. For example, let's say you're using 2 servers for 2 hours, you only pay for that 2 hours. You do not pay for creating the service, you do not pay for deleting the service, or you do not pay for maintaining the service. You just pay for the usage of 2 hours. Let's say if it is an on-premises data center in which you're launching 2 servers, in that case, you will have to pay for everything, right? You will have to pay for the maintenance of the data center. You will have to pay for the internet. You will have to pay for the creation of those resources. You will have to pay for the professionals who are handling the data center, that is networking engineers, security professionals and all that. Okay, so that's what cloud computing comes in to resolve off. So to make the costs much lesser and the process even faster. And instead of buying, owning, and maintaining a physical data center completely, you can basically access all of these technology services such as computing power, storage, and databases over the cloud. You don't have to do anything else. You just have to sign up with one of the cloud providers you like Azure, and then you can start using it. And over here, this image again summarizes it. Cloud computing via the internet, you can access all of their various different types of cloud computing services, which has a big range. So networking, software applications, security, data storage, and business intelligence. Coming to the main topic, which is what is Azure. So Azure is a complete cloud platform. So if you know what is cloud computing, you would know what Azure is, because Azure is a platform which provides cloud computing services. That's it. So like Azure, there are other services. There is AWS, there is GCP, there is IBM Cloud, there is Ali Cloud. There are so many other services, but Azure is one of the major cloud players. So it's basically the second top cloud player according to the public cloud market share. Number 1 is AWS, second comes Azure. But Azure is the fastest growing cloud network right now, even though AWS is in the number 1 position. But comparing the rate of growth, Azure has a much bigger growth. And also, again, it helps you host your existing applications. You can streamline new application development. You can create your application in order to host it to the Azure environment. And Azure can even enhance on-premises applications. If you have an on-premises application, you can create an integration to a certain Azure service, whatever service you like. Let's say you want to create an architecture like this. You want the front end to be available on the cloud, but you do not want the backend code, that is the business logic, and the database to be available on the cloud. You want it to be available in your data center so that it will be safer for you, because those are mission critical code and data. So now you can basically create this integration really easily. The front end can be in Azure, and you can create this integration from front end to back end very easily using Azure services which are already available. So Azure integrates the cloud services that you need to develop, test, deploy, and manage your applications, all of which while you're advantaging of cloud computing benefits. Okay, so this is basically what Azure is. It's a cloud provider which provides various types of cloud services via the internet. It is owned by Microsoft, and also Azure was launched in the year 2010. Like AWS was launched in 2006. It took 4 years for Microsoft to launch their own cloud service. So that 4 years basically put AWS at an advantage. That's why they are the number one, because within that 4 years they advanced a lot. Okay. Coming to the next one. So Azure provides cloud-based compute offerings. So they provide various types of services which we'll be looking at. But compute offerings are the most common types of services which everybody looks up to. So whenever you create an Azure account, the first thing you'll have to work on, or first thing you'll be working on, is virtual machines. Okay, so virtual machines are infrastructure as a service. So I'll come to that. And also you can easily scale up or scale out your resources as your application usage grows. So scale up or scale out basically means you can increase the number of servers, or you can decrease the number of servers according to the usage of your application. If there are more users, then you can increase the number of servers. If there are lesser users, then you can decrease the number of servers. There is no tie-up, there is no lock-in until and unless you buy a contract, like a 1 year contract or 2 year contract. If it's just on-demand instances, that is basically you're launching whenever you want and deleting whenever you want, there is no problem. You can increase and decrease, that is scale up and scale out the number of resources and servers according to your need. Okay, so there are essentially three types: infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and serverless. So infrastructure as a service is basically they provide you services which are basically infrastructural services like servers, networking services, database services. So even database is a platform managed service, a platform as a service, but infrastructural services give you access to the operating system itself, operating system level access. So in that case, virtual machines are basically servers, and so they give you access. You can select what type of a virtual machine you need, what should be the RAM, what should be the storage, what should be the operating system which is running on top of it, and everything you can basically manage. Second comes platform managed app service fabric. So app service is a tool which provides you a platform where you can select what runtime you need. For example, let's say you have a PHP application. You can create an app service, you can select the runtime as PHP, and you can upload your code. It will automatically provision the servers and host your code for you. You don't have to configure or set up anything, you just have to upload your code, but the code should be compatible to the Azure architecture. Okay, so that basically you'll have to make sure, but in this case, it's very, very simple. You don't have to configure anything, you just have to create the app service and upload your code. And finally comes serverless. So serverless, in this case, you don't even have to select the runtime. You don't have to provision anything. So functions is a tool for Azure Functions, where you can use it as a backend tool. You can put your code over there, and functions will only run whenever it is triggered. So let's say I want to run a certain code. For example, let's say I have a application which will modify images. It's basically an image modifier or image resizer tool. Okay, so now whenever somebody uploads an image and clicks on the button modify image, I want this particular code to run to modify that particular image, but I don't want this code to be running all the time. I just want it to run when they click on that particular button, right? So you can put that piece of code in Azure Functions, and when they click on the button, it will trigger the code, it will run the code, and it will send back the data, and that's it. So let's say that code runs for 1 second. You only have to pay for that particular 1 second in which the code ran. You don't have to basically pay for the servers which are running in the backend. So for example, let's say you launch a virtual machine. If it's running for 1 hour and you're just using the machine for like 2 minutes, you still have to pay for 1 hour because it's running for an hour. But when it comes to serverless code only, that is Azure Functions, in this case, even though the function is active all the time, you only pay for the time when the code runs. If the code runs for 10 seconds, you only pay for the 10 seconds. If it only runs for 20 seconds, you only pay for the 20 seconds. So these are the different types of compute offerings which Azure provides. Why did I want to give you this information? So that you can know Azure provides various types of services, a variety of services, and these are just some of it. These are just the compute offerings. All right. Coming to the next one, why Azure? So in this case, basically the benefits. security is much better in Azure. Why? Because again, cloud computing security is much better. Azure invests $1 billion every single year in research and development, and also security professionals. You can just visit their website and check these information. So this is what they state. They put in $1 billion in security of their Azure architecture. So that a normal company cannot spend $1 billion in security and hiring top security professionals, right? That's one thing. Scalability, you can scale up and scale out whenever you want and whatever you want. So you can scale up and scale out any resource you want. Second, third comes worldwide access. So this, I'll come to the next slide. I'll explain about this. Fourth one is hybrid capability. That is, you can connect to your on-premises network. You can also connect to your cloud network, or you can connect to a different cloud network. And also you can have it as a private and a public cloud. If you want to know what a private and a public cloud is, please visit our previous video on cloud computing, beginner cloud computing video. You'll understand it even better. And flexibility, you can delete your instances whenever you want. You can create your resources whenever you want. You can basically delete the Azure account whenever you want. There is no lock-in, there is no problem. You can do whatever you want with the Azure account. Okay, so now talking about worldwide access, they have many data centers. They have data centers in 54 different regions. So you can see this, right? This complete map. They have regions all over these places, and whichever is marked blue, this basically means these regions are currently under building. So they are building data centers in these regions, and they will be available soon. And so yeah, the rest are all the available data centers. So why worldwide access? So let's say I have an application for which I have customer base in India. Okay, so now let's assume that my customer base is growing in US. My application is getting popular in US. So now I want to move this application into US. So if I still run it on an Indian data center, obviously there would be latency for the US customers, right? So I want to migrate the application into the US data centers. So now if it is an on-premises data center, if my application was running in an on-premises data center in India, then I would have to set up a data center and hire people to maintain that in US and host my application over there. But if not, if my application is running on Azure, I just can migrate the entire application's architecture into an US data center, and that's it. The application would be ready to go in the US data centers. That's it. So this is what basically worldwide access means. All right, coming to the last part of this particular session, integral Azure services. So I'm going to talk about few integral Azure services. If you're going to start up with Azure, these are the services which you'll have to learn first. And I'll be opening this particular website. So this website gives you a lot of information about Azure. So we'll check out that later. So Azure SQL. So modern SQL family for migration and app modernization. So Azure SQL is a tool, which is a platform as a service tool, which provides you a platform to create a SQL database. So you can select what type of SQL engine you need. For example, Microsoft SQL Server or MySQL, you can select that. But within a couple of clicks, you can create a database which is running on the cloud where you get all the access, and you can just connect it to your local client and start using the database. The database is running on the cloud, but you can still connect it to your local client and access the database. And then Linux virtual machines. So virtual machines are basically servers which runs on the data center of Azure. Okay, so in this case, Linux virtual machines are basically virtual machines which have the Linux operating system running on. It could be Ubuntu, it could be Red Hat, it could be SUSE Linux, it could be CentOS, it could be any Linux operating system, but these are Linux virtual machines. There are also Windows virtual machines which are available in Azure, and yeah, so again, you can launch a Windows machine over there. And then comes to app service, I just explained you, right? So app service is again quickly create powerful cloud apps for web and mobile. So let's say if you want to launch a web application, let's say you have all the code and everything is available, you have two options. You can launch a virtual machine and you can set up everything over there. You can download the software, you can configure it, you can modify it according to your needs. You can basically do every single thing in that. You can modify it to the brim, and then you can host your application to it. But let's say you don't want to do that. You don't want to concentrate on the configuration part. You don't want to concentrate on the server part. You only want to make your application better. So you're working on the code mostly. You don't have the time to set up your servers. So in that case, you can go with app service. You just have to select the runtime, upload your code, it'll host everything for you. It will create the servers in the backend. It will host your code for you. It will configure everything for you. You just have to manage your code and your application's data. That's it. Okay, so these three are pretty integral Azure services. There are also other services like storage services in Azure, which are integral. So let me open this particular website. Okay, so azurechats.com, you can also visit this particular website. It gives you an overview of all the Azure services, right? So here again, let's look at the infrastructure as a service. So these are services which are coming under the infrastructure as a service domain. So under compute, let's just discuss about the popular ones. So for example, virtual machines. So you can provision Windows and Linux virtual machines in seconds. So again, if you click on it, you can see everything about it. Okay, so next comes virtual machine scale sets. So now virtual machine is a singular entity. Let's say you want to launch multiple virtual machines for your application. Let's say your application is gaining popularity every day and you want to launch multiple applications. Okay, so let's say that for handling 100 users, you need one server. So now suddenly your application has 1,000 users. So now you need 10 servers. And the next day your application has 10,000 users. So now 10 into 10. So you have 100 servers. So now to do that, you would have to use virtual machine scale sets and set up a scaling policy. According to the usage, it will automatically increase the number of services. If the usage decreases, it will automatically decrease the number of services. This will basically make it really cost optimized. And also it will make it much more efficient and your application will be always available. Okay, so this is one thing. And then comes the networking services. So without the networking services, virtual machines can't exist because virtual machines are basically servers and servers exist within networks. So the main service in networks is the virtual network. So you can create a private network which is isolated from all the other private networks in the Azure cloud, right? So you can do that in Azure, and also you can connect it to your on-premises networks as well. There is an option to do that. You can create a connection between your virtual network and your on-premises existing network so that the servers or the resources in these two networks can communicate with each other. And then load balancer, let's say you have 100 servers, 50 servers has one feature of the application and another 50 servers has another feature of the application. So now let's say whenever people search for the first feature, they have to go to the first 50 servers in the first 50 servers fleet, and then there is second 50 servers in that particular fleet. Okay, so this basically is, let's say if they are searching for the first feature, they will be taken to the first server. If they are searching for the second, they should be taken to the second server. You can set that up in load balancer. Whenever people are searching for it, let's say the first feature, it goes to the load balancer. In load balancer, you can set up a rule. Let's say if the website is example.com/feature1, so then it will go to the first feature server. If it's feature 2, it will go to the second feature server. You can set up that rule in load balancer, and according to the incoming URL, it will load balance. So it will basically balance the load to the appropriate servers so that you always have your applications running. Okay, so this is infrastructure as a service. Then platform as a service. So most of the services are platform as a service. They give you a platform in which you can configure whatever you need to do. For example, in networking, these are platform as a services. In compute, these are platform as a services. So app service, as I told you, is platform as a service. Azure Functions is a platform as a service. SQL database is a platform as a service. Database for MySQL, database for MariaDB, database for PostgreSQL. So as I told you, you can launch databases for your database engine according to your needs. Okay, so now I'm just going to deselect it, all services. So there are essential storage services as well. So there is something called Azure Storage. So Azure Storage has various types of storage units inside of it. So in Azure Storage, you have blob storage, you have Azure Table Storage, you have file storage. So you can learn more about Azure Storage from the Azure documentation. So this is one more integral tool. So virtual machines, app service, Azure Storage, SQL databases, and virtual networks. These 5 are very, very integral tools, and you can start off by learning them. And also, you can basically go to Azure documentation, docs.microsoft.com, And here, if you want to get started with Azure, so this is the first documentation I would suggest for you to go through. But you're already watching this video, so you're already in the right place. You would have already gained a lot of information about Azure. So that's it for today's session, guys. I hope it was helpful and informative for you. If you have any queries, leave a comment down below and we would be addressing all of your questions. And also, please remember to subscribe to our channel so that you don't miss our upcoming videos. And also, if you enjoy our content, leave a like and share our videos so that you get more of these curated content. Thank you.